Every small town has that one house. The one that no one goes near, the one with the broken windows and peeling paint, sitting on the edge of town like a ghost. For us, it was the house on Ashgrove Lane. It had been abandoned for as long as anyone could remember. Kids would dare each other to go inside, but no one ever did. Not really. Not until that night. It was the middle of fall, the leaves piling up in the gutters, the wind cutting through the air like a blade. My friends and I had just turned 16, that age where you're too old for childish fears but still feel the thrill of danger. We were bored, restless, and looking for something to do. That's when Matt suggested it. "Let's go to the house on Ashgrove," he said, grinning like he'd just thought of the greatest idea in the world. We all knew the stories. People said the house was cursed, that something terrible happened there years ago. Some said it was haunted by the family who used to live there. Others claimed it was something far worse. But Matt didn't believe in any of that. He called it urban legend nonsense. None of us wanted to look like cowards, so we agreed. It was a short walk from Matt's place, just a few blocks away from the town center. As we approached the house, my heart began to pound harder in my chest. Even from a distance, it had an aura of decay, like it was rotting from the inside out. The roof sagged in places, the windows were dark and empty, and the porch looked like it might collapse if you stepped on it. "See? Nothing to it," Matt said as we reached the gate, giving it a nudge with his foot. The rusty hinges squealed as the gate swung open, and we stepped onto the overgrown lawn. "I don't like this," I muttered under my breath, but no one seemed to hear me. Or maybe they did but didn't want to admit they felt the same way. Matt led the way, striding confidently up to the front door. He tried the knob, it was unlocked. "Easy," he said, pushing the door open with a loud creak. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the smell of mildew. The dim moonlight filtered through the cracked windows, casting long shadows across the floor. The first thing I noticed was the quiet. It was unnervingly still, like the house was holding its breath, waiting. The four of us, me, Matt, Sarah, and Jason, stood in the foyer for a moment looking around. The wallpaper was peeling, curling at the edges like it was trying to escape the walls. The furniture was old, covered in sheets that looked more like burial shrouds than protection from dust. "I say we split up," Matt said, clearly enjoying himself. "Two of us go upstairs to check out the basement." I wasn't thrilled with the idea, but no one spoke up to challenge him. Jason and Sarah volunteered to go upstairs, leaving me with Matt to check the basement. Lucky me. We found the door to the basement at the back of the house, half hidden behind a rotting curtain. Matt yanked it open with a bit too much enthusiasm, and a gust of cold, damp air hit us in the face. The steps leading down were narrow and steep, creaking with each step we took. I held onto the railing, my flashlight sweeping the darkness as we descended. At the bottom of the stairs, the basement was bigger than I expected, with a low ceiling and exposed pipes running along the walls. The concrete floor was cracked, and there were old, rusted tools scattered around, along with a few wooden crates that looked like they hadn't been touched in decades. It was cold, colder than it should have been for early fall. Matt walked ahead of me, his flashlight sweeping back and forth. "Nothing down here. Told you this place was just a dump." But I wasn't so sure. There was something off about the basement. The air felt thick, almost suffocating. And then I heard it, a faint sound like whispering coming from the far corner of the room. "Do you hear that?" I asked, my voice shaky. Matt stopped, turning his flashlight toward the corner. "Hear what?" The whispering grew louder, like voices overlapping, but I couldn't make out any words. It sounded like it was coming from behind one of the crates. My heart raced and I wanted to turn around and leave, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Matt, however, was unfazed. He walked over to the crate and pulled it aside. There, in the wall, was a small door. It was barely 3 feet tall, made of old wood with rusted hinges. The kind of door you'd expect to see in a child's playhouse, not in a basement. It didn't belong there. And the whispering was louder now, coming from behind that door. Matt grinned, more excited than ever. "Now this is interesting." I wanted to stop him, but before I could say anything, he grabbed the handle and pulled the door open. The moment it swung wide, the whispering stopped. The silence that followed was deafening, oppressive. Inside the door was a small, dark space no bigger than a closet. And there, in the middle of the floor, was a doll. It was old, filthy, its clothes tattered and covered in dirt. Its eyes were made of glass, staring straight ahead, unblinking. But what made my stomach churn was its face. Half of it was missing like it had been ripped off. The exposed part of its head was covered in scratches as though someone, or something, had clawed at it. "I'm not touching that," I whispered, my voice barely audible. But Matt, of course, had no such reservations. He reached in and grabbed the doll by the arm. The moment he lifted it out of the room, the temperature dropped. It felt like the air was being sucked out of the basement, like the house was reacting to us, to the doll. And then, from somewhere above us, we heard a loud crash. "Sarah? Jason?" I called out, but there was no response. Matt didn't seem concerned. Probably just knocked something over. I wasn't so sure. We made our way back up the stairs, my legs shaking with every step. The moment we reached the main floor, I knew something was wrong. The house had changed. The furniture, once covered in dusty sheets, was now uncovered, the chairs and tables arranged differently. The wallpaper that had been peeling was now whole, though faded. It was like the house had reverted to some previous state, as if we had stepped back in time. "Sarah? Jason?" Matt called out again. No answer. We moved through the house, the floor creaking under our feet, but the silence was overwhelming. It felt like the house was holding its breath again, waiting for something. We made our way to the staircase and found Sarah's phone lying at the bottom step, the screen cracked. I picked it up, my heart racing. Something's not right. Matt was about to respond when we heard it. Footsteps coming from upstairs. Slow, deliberate. They echoed through the house, each one sending a shiver down my spine. "Sarah? Jason?" Matt called out, but again no answer. The footsteps continued, getting closer. We both stood frozen, staring up at the top of the stairs. And then, from the darkness, something stepped into view. It wasn't Sarah or Jason. It was a figure, tall and gaunt, with skin stretched tight over its bones. Its eyes were sunken, hollow, and its mouth hung open in a twisted, unnatural grin. It stood there, swaying slightly, staring down at us with those empty eyes. Matt dropped the doll. The figure moved, slowly descending the stairs, its bony hands reaching out as it did. The air grew colder, the walls seemed to close in, and I could barely breathe. My legs felt like they were made of lead, but somehow I managed to grab Matt's arm and pull him toward the door. We ran. We didn't look back. The last thing I heard as we fled the house was the sound of that thing's footsteps, following us down the stairs, relentless, hungry. We never saw Sarah or Jason again.